An ex-Navy SEAL turned cook is the only person who can stop a group of terrorists when they seize control of a U.S. battleship. Under Siege is up next on Inside Movies. Hey guys, welcome to Inside Movies. Today we are capping off our Steven Segal month. Previously we have done Above the Law, Marked for Death, Hard Target, Out for Justice, and now we're doing possibly his favorite, definitely one of his biggest hits, Under Siege. Today I'm joined by novelist Andrew Buckley, writer-illustrator GMB CHOMICHUK, and the editor-in-chief of Merc Publishing, Murphey. I didn't know what was happening. Okay, let's get into it. What's the good? What do we like about Under Siege?
Man, there's so much good shit in this movie. This was actually, when we talked about, what was that crap movie we just did last? Out for
Justice.
Out for Justice, where Greg argued vehemently that he was really putting in effort in that movie in his acting, and that I disagreed. In this one, I think he was actually putting in effort. He actually had some legitimately funny lines. Like when the Erika Elena character was like, "Oh, I have 2 rules. I don't do something and I don't kill people." He's like, "I'm thrilled to death to hear that. That leaves a lot of open territory." Like, that was just lovely deadpan, kind of funny. And then when he's on the call with the admirals, he's like, "Sorry, sir, you can court-martial me if I live." Like, all those things. He was being quippy. He's never been quippy before. That's funny. Good for him for trying.
I think it's because they found the secret sauce that he needs is that don't make him a cop. Make him someone that has authority. He's in the military, he is a military man, but he's a cook. So him being silly and having those lines, it's a little bit more believable for him to just kind of be like, "Oh, I'm like the off the wall guy. Like, I don't follow your rules. I'm just gonna cook." Like, I thought that it opened up something in him where maybe he's just a bad cop.
He just can't play.
I think it's an important thing to watch all Steven Seagal movies. We stumbled across this in a previous review. If you think of Steven Seagal movies right from Above the Law to Under Siege as the same man, having done all that stuff as the same guy, and now he's hiding out on a boat, and all of those previous murder sprees, that's this guy's character, and now he's a cook. And he just doesn't want to take any shit from anyone, and there aren't any rules that are going to hem him in. And if you tell him, go kill those guys, he is just going to start killing. But you can't tell him to stop. Don't tell him to stop.
That makes sense, though, because he was Special Forces in Above the Law, the first movie.
That's what I'm saying.
His past, so actually that translates really nicely into Under Siege. If you forget all the bullshit that happened in the middle with the Ponytail trilogy, you can almost make a direct jump from Above the Law to Under Siege. If you really
and all of his, see, this is what I'm saying, and all of his character traits in this film are the titles of his previous films. He's Above the Law, he's Marked for Death, he's Out for Justice, he's Hard to Kill.
I feel like this one is the most polished of his movies. It just feels like it's bigger budget, and it has some real actors in it that are like Tommy Lee Jones and Gary Busey are just they're pretty great villains.
I love Tommy Lee Jones so much. Gary Busey, he is weird in this. It's not bad. It adds to his character, but also doesn't age well. His character specifically, with the dressing up and that, not okay anymore.
Is this pre-Predator 2 or is this after Predator 2? Timeline-wise, it's
after
released.
I think.
So this is still after Busey's accident. But I would argue that he was better in this than he was in Predator 2.
But
he started to lose it after this. Well, there's a very strange quality jump that occurs between that last piece of shit we reviewed and this one. Like George said, this is really polished. This has known actors in it who are Tommy Lee Jones looks like he's having a fucking blast through the entire movie, just happily enjoying himself.
Can we give credit then towards who directed this Under Siege?
The same guy who directed Above the Law.
You're making that up.
I promise. He didn't come back for Segal. He came back for Tommy Lee Jones, to be clear.
This one, okay, so that blows my mind, but it also tells you like how far you can come as a filmmaker, and that like he applied everything that he learned on those previous movies to this movie and made it really, you know, it's objectively Steven Seagal's best film, and Tommy Lee Jones is incredible in it, and their final knife fight,
oh, so good,
right? It blew me away. I saw that in the theater, and I'd seen Tommy Lee Jones in all kinds of other stuff. I didn't realize his predilection to knife fighting, which we should review that movie where he fights with knives for the whole movie. What's that one called? Anyway.
With Benicio del Toro.
Yeah, Benicio del Toro. Which is, if you think of it, as a direct sequel to Under Siege, as if he survived.
Almost as if these other like serious actors had seen the movies that Steven Seagal had starred in, and they were like, oh, okay, so this is just that. And so they came into it just having fun. And it ended up to this like perfect amalgamation of just a fun action movie with really good actors being silly. But it worked for the storyline that was being held together by Steven Seagal.
And
it was a perfect storm.
I think you're so right, because he is the straight man to their over-the-top performances.
Totally.
His lack of performance works as a am I saying this out loud? The grounding feature of the film. It's like what you were saying, he's delivering those straight lines, and it's funny because everyone else is so over the top.
That's actually kind of accurate, because Gary Busey is crazy anyways. Tommy Lee Jones like swung for the fences in this movie. Like he is weirdly, you're right. That's horrible to think about, but yes, Seagal is like the grounding feature in this. He's the straight man. All his humor is delivered very monotone. Even when Ellen acts like, oh, what are you, like some kind of special forces? And she's like, no, I'm just a cook. Just a lowly cook. Like, it's all really nicely done. Oh man, I really respect this movie a lot.
Oh, and then like later when she says, you're not just a cook, he says, I'm also a cook.
I also cook.
Yeah.
So good.
But the formula for this movie, like this is the Die Hard formula, and it's just, it works, right? It's one man, you know, kind of moving in the shadows against an army and trying to take them out one by one. And you see it in Executive Decision, which he's also in, where he's in an airplane, and but he's not the star. And you see it in Sudden Death with Jean-Claude Van Damme is another great example of that, where it's in a hockey arena and Jean-Claude has to go through and take these guys out one by one. It's
and
just
Cliffhanger.
And Cliffhanger too, yeah.
Mountain.
Die Hard on a Mountain. How could I forget? So this plan for a movie, it lends itself nicely to action.
He was in Cliffhanger?
No, but the plot is
Oh, sorry.
It's just more
I
help.
was
Yeah, he plays
my mouth
Sylvester
is over.
Stallone
Sorry,
in that
George.
movie.
He's so good, he plays Sylvester Stallone. I have a question for the group. Who would win in a fight? John McClane or Cook Steven Seagal? In fact, I don't even know Steven Seagal's character's name in any movie. He's just
Casey Ryback.
Casey Ryback. Would Ryback win against John McClane?
No.
Do they have guns?
They have harsh language. They have one gun each, and they have sweaty, torn-up t-shirt.
Seagal is obviously the better hand-to-hand combatant than Bruce Willis's, what's his name? John McClane. But I just like Bruce Willis better, so I'm going to vote for him anyways.
Who looks better with a receding hairline?
John
Bruce
McClane.
Willis.
I think
Yeah.
Bruce Willis wins.
I mean, so at the basic level of, if we're talking about this, you know, the first 5 Steven Seagal movies, this one stands out as the only one that has a plot, unlike all of the other movies. All of these were very easy to get mixed up, whereas this one really stands alone, as it doesn't feel like it should be in this list of movies, because this one has really its own thing, whereas all the other ones kind of have the same building blocks. And after the Steven Seagal dump, getting to the end of it, this one was like a little bit of a breath of fresh air. You know, different types of characters, a totally different setting with the submarine, and so, you know, I think this was definitely a good role for him to choose at that time, because like he needed to expand, you know, out of cop.
I mean, it's a pretty big budget movie all things considered, but still lower budget. And they did a trick that Andrew pointed out, which is set it on the battleship so the production value ramps up immediately. It feels like a place that we don't normally have access to, so you're in this special environment that regular people don't see. You wonder how it's going to work. You don't know the rules of this environment, and him leading us along makes it interesting, whether you want to admit it or not.
So there's really only one female character in this whole movie, and it felt like she was just there so there would be a female character. It was, I don't know, but you know who does have a good female character is Greg.
Yes, I'm doing the illustrations on a new book that will be in Kickstarter probably at the same time this video is out, called The She-Wolf. So if you like seeing me illustrate a lot of inventive murders from a main female character who is the kind of person you would rather flee into hell to escape than face, then look up The She-Wolf on Kickstarter.
Yes, and there is a link in the description of this video to that Kickstarter, so click the link and go check out the She-Wolf and go back this cool new project. Let's get into the bad. What did we not like about Under Siege?
Oh man, Erika Eleniak is not a good actress, regardless, but it feels like that the writers were sitting around, that they were in pre-production and they were going to start shooting tomorrow, and then like, oh wait, there's no females in this movie. How do we get a really nice pair of boobs in this movie? And they just angled in the girl jumping out of the cake, who is useless to the storyline and doesn't drive anything forward.
I actually have the trivia for that this time.
Oh, sure.
Steven Segal specifically asked for her to be a part of the movie. And so they, after the whole script was written, they wrote her into the movie because Steven Segal wanted her to be his partner.
He also wanted a sex scene, and they wouldn't go for it. And
well, that makes my fact dirtier.
Yeah, they also initially went for Pamela Anderson, and apparently he made advances to her on the couch, on the casting couch, and so she was like, "Nope, I'm out." And he was like, "Well, the girl in the next room will totally go for it," and that was Erika.
Come on, that's so horrible and cringy.
It's absolutely brutal. But I just found a couple different stories. Well,
so
the internet, so who knows? But
I have this in my notes, but that last fun tidbit has really just solidified it. I just don't like Steven Seagal. This movie is the best of all the movies that we watched for this month because of the other cast members, and because they had a much better budget and they had a better writer's room. But it's still Steven Seagal's acting, and it's just, I don't think it's ever gonna do it for me. He is great at martial arts.
You know what else he's good at, Murphy? Objectively, is singing. And if you guys don't believe me, you should look up Steven Seagal songs from the Crystal Caves. 2004, the Steven Seagal album, available wherever you stream your music. It's a cultural artifact for sure. But yeah, I find him a somewhat reprehensible human being. So it's good that if you're finding these movies, it's likely that he's not being paid for any of them anymore. So you can enjoy your action movies where you find them.
So for me, in the bad is I didn't really find like there was really any signature fights in this one. Like, for me, I come to these movies for the action, and I would agree that this one is probably the highest production value and kind of the most professionally done, but it also doesn't have the same great action scenes. Like in Out for Justice, there's like 2, and in Marked for Death, there's like that one good mall fight. And in this one, there's action in it, and it's solid, but there's not like a great fight. And I had remembered thinking that the knife fight with him and like Tommy Lee Jones was like pretty great, and then I rewatched it last night in preparation for this, and I was like, it does not really hold up. It's very short, and Tommy Lee Jones doesn't really get any damage on him really, and then he like sticks his eyes out and shoves his head in the TV, and it's over before you know it. So, and also like the big action kind of finale. It's not just like Steven Seagal. It's like he's like recruited like these like old guys, and they're on like this like mission together. And
Which is cool. What was wrong with that?
I didn't. I would have just rather him kind of continue taking them out.
Oh, you didn't like that they were giving credit to people who have actual skills or anything? I mean, other than, you know, being able to chop somebody on the neck and throw them through something? Was that the problem, George? Was the problem that there was no grocery store on the cruise ship?
That would have made it way better.
What if they did have a fight in the commissary, didn't they? Well, that's like the grocery store of a ship.
There's definitely one in the kitchen. There was one in the commissary.
Right.
Well, and talking about the ending, it's, you know, they you know, he has the knife fight, or no, the knife fight happens before that. But when the submarine is going away, and they're like, "Oh no, what are we gonna do?" And then he's like, "We have these big guns because we're on a battleship." And everyone's like, "Oh!" And then, you know, the rocket gets shot off, and then that's something that the government has to deal with. I thought the ending was, at the ending, the whole movie fell apart. I thought, like, it really, really was like, oh, we have all these loose ends we have to tie up, and they just kind of like wrapped them with a zip tie, and we're like, good, there you go.
Let's get into the skinny. What's our final grades for Under Siege?
This is where I discovered Steven Seagal. I give this one 5 Gary Busey's dancing in drag out of 5. I do love this movie. It still holds up for me. The rest of them can go to hell.
I'll give this one a B+. I think it's super solid as well. And you know, if you're in the mood for like a 90s action movie, you know, plug this one in. You can't go wrong.
I'm gonna say, yeah, on the scale of Steven Seagal films, which you have to rate out of Fading Widow's Peaks, you got to give this one 5 out of 5. Fading Widow's Peaks for Steven Seagal. He's bringing whatever constitutes his A game, and he has a great supporting cast. I was sad to hear the stories surrounding that cast, but you know, I stand by my Steven Seagal rating.
I loved a lot about this movie, none of which were Steven Seagal, but there was enough. So this is going to get my highest rating of 3 out of 4 fighting knives.
I like it. Okay, that's going to do it for another episode of Inside Movies. Come back next month. We're in December. We're reviewing Christmas-themed movies. I've been George Michail, joined by Andrew Buckley, GMB CHOMICHUK, and Murphey. Disappearing under the water. I don't know. Go and check out She-Wolf. There's a link to the Kickstarter in the description of this video, and follow along on our Facebooks, our Instagrams, and our Twitters. Links to all those in the description of this video as well. Until next time, peace.